Well, they finally admit it. We have major mainstream policy and media endorsement of meat being nutritious. Truly, vegans will never recover from this. This is the end of veganism. Not really, but it's nice to see the institutions on our side for once. This is a major report that came out of the United Nations, and I'm not going to go over the source material. I'm just going to give it to you from Fortune magazine, because Fortune magazine is about as mainstream as you are going to get, and this is big for financial institutions. Read it. Businesses and businessmen read this. These are people who are fairly serious in the decision-making process in the marketplace and in other places who read Fortune. And it's interesting to see this. Now, this article came out a couple of weeks ago, and I really wanted to cover it back when it came out, but I was not ready to come back to YouTube yet. I was pretty down in the dumps in terms of my personal health. If you watched my recent videos, you understand why that is. And I got some good advice from some of you in the comments, although I'm not ready to add plants back into my diet in any serious way just yet. And no, I'm not thinking about leaving some variation of a carnivore diet either, to reassure those who were concerned about that. But anyway, we have institutional endorsement of red meat being nutritious. This is a great thing. So let's go to the story. Headline from Fortune magazine. A major health organization says meat, eggs, and milk are vital sources of much-needed nutrients. Here's why. It's nice to see that a major health organization, as they call it, has finally caught up with the rest of us. We all knew that eggs contain high levels of vitamin D and a whole host of other key vital nutrients. We knew that red meat was a source of pretty much most of what you need in a day, that there are people who have done a pure, hardcore carnivore diet, the lion diet, where they eat red meat and nothing but, maybe not even organs. They just eat red meat, they consume salt, and they consume water, and they do just fine, and they've done it for years. Go take a look at Dr. Chafee. I don't think he'd quite identify as a lion diet person, but he has famously done a very strict carnivore diet for more than 2 decades now, and he's fine. He's in very good shape. So it's nice to see institutional support for what the rest of us have been noticing for a long time, and what our ancestors would have thought you really needed a major governing body like this one to tell you, because they knew that if you eat meat and you eat organs, that you'd be okay. They prized meat. Our ancestors all did. It was only until modern man got, essentially brainwashed by stupid facts, given by people with a personal agenda, that we believed that meat was bad for you. It's not bad for you. Not even really processed meat per se, depending what it's processed with. And we'll get to that here in a moment. But let's actually see the crux of the matter. So from the article, quote, a new report from the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, the FAO, has determined that meat, eggs, and milk are vital sources of much-needed nutrients, such as proteins, fats, and carbohydrates, that aren't easily found in plant-based foods. The comprehensive study, which is based on data from more than 500 scientific papers and 240 policy documents, also stated that these nutrients are critical during key life stages, such as pregnancy and lactation, childhood, adolescence, and older age. Nutrient needs of humans vary substantially over their life course. While there are a variety of dietary patterns that can meet those needs, foods that are rich in nutrients are a critical part of a healthy diet, FAO Deputy Director General Maria Helena Semedo and Chief Economist Maximo Torero Cullen wrote in a foreword to the report. Terrestrial animal source foods provide energy and many essential nutrients such as protein, fatty acids, and several vitamins and minerals that are less common in other food types. End quote. That by itself should put an end to the plant-based craze being pushed by some of the elites in the society. That should put an end to it, because we're going to go over here in just a second what they mean. What are these essential nutrients that you can't get from other sources? This next list is going to sound like something that almost like Dr. Barry or Professor K had written. That's how crazy this sounds. But don't worry, don't get your hopes up, because they do lose the plot here. But let's actually take a look at the list of essential nutrients. So here, according to them, are the health benefits of eating animal-sourced foods. Some of the crucial nutrients found in animal-sourced food are as follows. Again, this is from the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, an organization that those of us who have been resisting the plant-based push will note has often been behind the plant-based push. So here's what they say about meat. High-quality protein, which is necessary for increasing muscle mass. Essential fatty acids, which help with cognition, neurodevelopment, and anti-inflammatory processes. Iron, which prevents iron deficiency anemia. Calcium, which contributes to bone health. Zinc, which supports vital functions in growth, development, and immunity. Selenium, which is anti-inflammatory and supports genome-level processes. Vitamin B12 for neurodevelopment and cell formation. Choline for growth, brain function, and gene interactions. Bioactive compounds such as carnitine, creatine, and taurine that promote good health. End quote. I would add cholesterol, because cholesterol is important for various signaling functions in the body. I know some people who are not familiar with meat-based nutrition might be a little surprised to hear cholesterol spoken positively of. But it's true, your body actually needs cholesterol. It's usually the problem is when you consume high cholesterol foods with high carbohydrate things that you start running into problems. And that is a whole complicated scientific topic that I'll leave for other people. But cholesterol is not the enemy. And it's a little disappointing that they left that out of here because they really would have just caused heads to explode if they had done that. But, oh well. But like I said, they do lose the plot here. They tell us, and I can't say part of this without laughing, so we'll come back to that one. They scaremonger about things like processed meats, bacon and nitrites, scary. We have been scaremongered about bacon for decades. Nitrites aren't that big a deal. If you ever, the same people who tell us that nitrites are bad tell us to eat celery. Well, celery is a natural source of nitrites. And here's the thing. If you go buy nitrite-free bacon at the grocery store, I almost guarantee you that you're going to flip it over, the package over, and look at the ingredients list, and you're going to see celery powder or something like it, which is a natural source of these preservatives. It's a natural source of nitrites. When they say it's nitrite-free, it's synthetic nitrite-free. It's processed nitrite-free. But they then cured it with celery powder. And several months ago, I tried making a ham and brining it with celery powder, and it did not work at all. It came out pretty gross. So I don't know how how bacon is made that way properly. Maybe they're just using a tiny touch of it. And truly nitrite-free bacon, the organic pasture-raised stuff, doesn't sit in the refrigerator quite as well as the actual industrial nitrites. So if that's what you're worried about is more like the industrial nitrites, like synthetic ones, trust me, we're on the same page. But if you're trying to avoid nitrites, you're going to have to just eat raw pork belly, basically, or uncured pork belly, and cook it yourself, which is fine. Pork belly's delicious. But anyway, they basically tell you that, all these, processed meats are horrible. And look, I am like one of the biggest champions for avoiding processed foods, but bacon is fine. It really is. Granted, almost any of these things that you make yourself are going to be better for you than buying the stuff from the grocery store. But that's true for almost anything. I still have a pork belly in my freezer that I really want to try to make bacon with, and maybe I'll get around to doing it and putting a video up about making bacon, trying to do it without use of industrial nitrites. Let me know if you're interested in that, because I have at least one pork belly, and I actually think I have 2 pork bellies sitting in my freezer right now, so it'd be a fun experiment. But here's the part I couldn't say before without laughing. They just give you all this long list of wonderful things that meat has in it for you. And then they say this. Here's how much they want you to eat per day. 9 to 71 grams of meat per day they consider to be safe. Grams. 9 grams is about 1/3 of an ounce. 9 grams. 71 grams is about 2.5 ounces. That's what they say you should eat for red meat per day. That's where they lose the plot. That's nothing. You know where you're going to find 9 grams of red meat per day? Probably in like a frozen, healthy style, quote unquote, meal from the frozen food aisle, which are going to be so loaded with preservatives anyway, industrial preservatives, that you're negating any, quote, health benefits that might be from that food and from that trace amount of meat in there. 9 grams of meat is going to give you a couple grams of protein, maybe at best, right? If 28 grams cooked meat, by the way, if 28 grams is, 4 ounces, then what are you getting if, for say, like, let's use red meat. Like, a moderately fatty piece of beef has about 21 grams of protein in 4 ounces. A third of that. You're going to get 7 grams of protein, maybe, out of 9 grams of meat, maybe. Probably not even that much. Which means you're going to get, at best, like, not even trace amounts of calcium, zinc, selenium, vitamin B, choline, and all the other things they rightfully list as being important that you can find in red meat. And that's where they lose the plot. Because they can't come out and say an animal-based diet of some kind is a proper human diet. They cannot come out and say that. Because if they did come out and say that, it would destroy or irreparably harm the plant-based movement, which is not doing really well these days anyway, because Beyond Meat, every time it looks like this year that things are turning around for them, they get more and more bad news. Because people don't want the slop. People don't want the artificial meats. They're being exposed as being really detrimental to human health. And when you find out how they make those fake proteins that are in it, those plant-based proteins, how highly processed they are, you don't want that either, because it's disgusting. But they did come out and endorse red meat as a source of nutrition, and I think we should take this, go to the source material. Those who are more well-read on the peer-reviewed articles in the nutrition and health space should take this work and use it to our advantage. We now have official institutional support for everything we've been saying about the health benefits of meat. It's time to push back hard, and we now have an institutional support, even if you don't like the institution, and I don't like this institution at all. I'm one of those people who doesn't trust the UN on almost anything, but if they're going to endorse red meat as a nutritious food, we should use it. Let me know what you think of this in the comments, please. Like and subscribe if you haven't. It does help. So does sharing this on social media. That helps a lot too. I'm Anthony Stine, the Practical Carnivore. Thanks for tuning in.